Happy days, hopefully, for the Lions.
Hey, this is SportsSlaw with Lomas Brown, the pro.
And Deb Schneider, I'm the prof. And together, we're the pro and the prof.
Okay, Lomas, how you doing today?
I'm great, Deb.
SportsSlaw.
Yeah, Happy New Year to everyone, too, man. The new year, new everything now, Deb.
New everything. And for the first time in a long time, we don't have to talk COVID.
Yes.
I know,
yes.
you know, I mean, everything, we're still in the middle of the pandemic, but here in Michigan, we have some really, really exciting things happening in the area of sports gambling.
Yeah, a long time coming. And, you know, Michigan always seems to be ahead of the curve. We always do things. We try to be first to everything. And, you know, we're up there with some of the first states to approve sports gambling and sports betting. So it's exciting. It's going mainstream now. And, you know, it's going to be a different look when you talk about sports, when you talk about odds, when you talk about points. It's going to mean a lot more to a lot more people now in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, so we're gonna chat about that, and that is happening Friday, January 22nd at noon. So,
and another little tidbit is you're a co-host, the big fella. You know, I'm one of the official spokesperson for the MGM bet. So, you know, I've been doing my promo commercials, and they, like you say, they start airing on Friday. So excited about things and the way things are going. So we're going to have a nice little conversation about it. And, you know, we got a little special guest too that we're going to bring in, Dave Rieger. I'm sorry, I'm pronouncing this name wrong and stuff, but my producer, you know, produced for our football games with WJR, great guy, and a guy that knows this sporting aspect or the betting aspect that's coming up. So we definitely want to get him in here and try to quiz him. We want to see what he's thinking about, what's on that mind, what's going on. And you see that middle name right there, Kingpin? Well, come to find out, he's bowled how many 300 games, Dave?
I've had a couple 300 games in my past, yeah.
There it is, right there.
Very impressive. Congratulations.
Good to see you, Lomas. Hi, Deb. How are you?
Good, Dave. How you doing today?
Real good. Thanks a lot for inviting me into SportsSlaw.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to have you. You know, I thought when we start talking about sports gambling, maybe being a prof, I'll go back and give a little bit of history. And then let's get into what Michigan is doing, which is really, really exciting with the mobile sports betting and online starting. And, you know, like Loma said, it's one of the first states in the country that's doing it. So back in, 1992, there were a few states that had sports betting. And then they passed a law, PASPA, which said that which prohibited sports betting unless the state, and this is a federal law, unless the states had sports betting in place by 1993. So we had the sports books out in Nevada, and I think we had, a few in Atlantic City, and that not a whole lot going on. And then in 2012, Governor Christie wanted to get sports betting. So they passed the law, and they said they could bet on sports. Well, that violated PASPA, and the court struck it down. In 2014, they tried again and said, we're not going to allow sports betting. We're just going to not prohibit it. That again was struck down, but it went up to the Supreme Court. And they heard arguments December 4th, to be exact, which happens to be my sister's birthday if she's listening, December 4th of 2017. That's how I remember it.
I like how you slipped that in there.
Happy birthday, Hal. And then in May of 2018, Murphy versus the NCAA, which was the name of the case, was decided by the Supreme Court. And what they said basically was a victory for federalism, which stated that the states could actually pass their own laws, and the federal government couldn't control that because there really wasn't any federal regulatory. They just said you can't do it. So it was a very interesting, it was a 7-2 decision at the time. And so since 2018, the states have been working very, very hard to get sports betting, to the point that they're now saying by 2024, 50% of the citizens of the United States will be in states where it's legal to bet on sports. So let's fast forward. Dave, tell us about gambling.
So the sports gambling started here in Michigan just as the pandemic started. I remember the day. Lomas might have been there also. There was a WJR VIP party at MGM. Lomas, you probably were there.
Absolutely.
And that day they opened up gambling only in person, either at the sports book or at the kiosks in the casino. And then that night, the NBA started shutting down games. And that was the beginning of, the beginning of the pandemic. They just started gambling and it got shut down immediately. And we had to wait until the casinos reopened to a limited number of people for on-site gambling. Well, we've been waiting for mobile gambling to start. And on Friday at 12 o'clock, that is going to launch. So you will be able to do mobile betting on the games in addition to fantasy football through DraftKings and FanDuel and others, and a virtual casino, all from your smartphone. And that's huge. That allows you to be able to do live in-game betting. You can still do your parlays, your teasers, your money line bets. But it's just something that is just huge for the state of Michigan, that they now marry online or mobile gambling in addition to on-site if you want to go and enjoy the games at the casino in the sports book, or just make a bet at the different kiosks that they have. Yeah, so it's very cool.
And if you go back, Dave, like you said, I was there the first day where we were able, I put $100 on the Lions to win 7 games. Of course, I lost that bet. But I remember, like you were saying, it was just sports betting then. And now you fast forward to now, and this opened up. It's like you say, it's a virtual casino. So you could do any type of games now. You could bet on anything now, your blackjacks, all the games that are in the casino. So I know that's it. They weren't talking about that back in March. When I went there, it was strictly about the sports betting, but things have evolved since then. And, this sports betting now, it is really, it's just really, I think, going to evolve the sports too, because of some of the things that you can, and maybe even put some rules on some of the things that you can't do in the sports because of sports betting now.
Right. Well, a lot of the teams have these BetMGM, FanDuel as their sponsors of the teams. Yeah. I mean, I never would have thought that you would have ever seen a team partner up with a gambling, outfit. So that's changed. And also there's 9 properties, including the tribal casinos here in Michigan, that are allowing this. The only difference is with Greektown's casino, they're only going to have sports betting starting on Friday. That's going to be a little while longer before they bring in their virtual casino. Yeah. So they're just gonna, if you're going to deal with DraftKings and Greektown, it's just going to be online gaming for now, or online betting on games for now.
So you were talking about this is really 3 parts. Can you explain the 3 parts of?
So FanDuel and DraftKings, if you remember years ago, they came out in a force with fantasy football and doing online fantasy games, and they were everywhere. Then there was a little bit of an issue with some collusion. There was a little issue with some of their proprietary information getting stolen back and forth, whatever. So they went away for a little while, but then they kind of came back. So fantasy is one part of it. The second part of it is a virtual casino, like Lomas said. You can play slots, you can play craps, you can play cards, you can play blackjack, roulette, whatever the casino offers, they will offer virtually. The third part of it is betting on games, whether it be your parlays, your teasers, live in-game betting when the game's going on, over, under. I mean, there's just a myriad of things you can gamble on. So with all the different sports that go on around the world, like soccer, like it's everything. Horse racing, competitive darts in the UK. I mean, they'll have everything. Anything that they can put a spread on, you'll be able to bet on it.
Yeah. Now this might be a silly question, but I'm just wondering, what's the difference between will it be set up? Say if I wanted to play roulette, will there actually be a person there throwing the dice, or will this be computer generated? How does that look? How does it look?
It's probably just going to be the wheel and a computer generated ball that will just go, and it'll all be, you put your bets down. It'll have a timer on top, because you've seen it at the casino. They have it where you can play virtual craps and virtual roulette now, where they have a timer. You pick your numbers, and then the ball goes around, and they have a camera on a wheel, and then it falls on the number, and then everything is done there. There's a lot of people that like to do that better than going up and playing and with other people at the table. Maybe they're not used to it or whatever, so they already kind of have it, but it'll be built in virtually. It's going to make it very easy to be able to enjoy whatever type of gambling you like to do. But with the aspect of sports, because you've got AFC NFC championship game coming, you've got the Super Bowl, and then in a couple months, you've got March Madness, although it's only going to be in the state of Indiana, unfortunately, due to COVID. But hopefully we're going to have a full tournament. So there's a lot of cool things that you're going to be able to bet on.
You bring up COVID. I think this is really a good way to get, quite frankly, to get some of the economy and the sports betting, because, sports betting and gambling does bring in a lot of revenue for the state. And people are, they haven't been able to go to casinos. When we get back to going to casinos, they're nervous about going to casinos, and probably with good reason.
Sure.
So I think this really is going to make a big difference from a revenue generator, both for the state and for the casinos.
Yeah, it's going to be a win-win for everybody. And as you can see up on the screen, they're offering all these promo items. So, $100 in free bets. Sign up here, you get $100 in vouchers and free bets there. And speaking of COVID and gambling, this has to have been, and in fantasy, this has to have been one of the toughest years ever for fantasy football or for even gambling, because you might make a bet for the next day, and especially with the NBA, they had two people that get COVID, so they can't play, or they're sitting them for rest. So you really have to pay attention to what's going on. And sometimes they throw some. I read an article that Vegas has made a ton of money off of sports gambling this year, because this has been the toughest year for sports gambling because of COVID. You didn't know who was going to be playing. It's been really tough.
Yeah. As long as you didn't have a Bronco quarterback.
Don't even go there. Don't even go there.
You opened up a can.
I did win my fantasy league. Just saying.
Congratulations. I unfortunately, and Lomas can attest to this, I was in the semifinals of my fantasy football league, and unfortunately, the person I was playing against had Tom Brady against the Detroit Lions. Lomas, you remember what happened in the first half of that game?
Oh my goodness, man. We were sitting up there thinking, man, he's going to break the record for the most yards and maybe most touchdowns in the game. Because in the first half, he had almost 400 yards and 3 or 4, I think maybe 4 touchdowns
my whole season,
first half.
My whole season imploded that day. Yeah,
that
was horrible.
So Dave, let me ask you this, and it may not correlate, but do you think the emergence of the Raiders and the Knights, the hockey team, relocating to Vegas, do you think that helped speed up the point of sports, the higher up saying that, we have to get ahead of this, we have to go ahead and we have to get gambling legalized, especially sports betting, do you think those teams locating to Vegas might have had something to do with that?
You know, it's a great question. I don't know for sure that it had any impact on it as far as getting it sped up, but I will say this. I didn't think I'd ever see the day when you would have professional teams playing in Las Vegas.
You're right.
I mean, they're the college teams, and you've been to Vegas many times. You know, there's nobody in Vegas is from Vegas. It's like they're always from somewhere else. It's kind of like Florida and Arizona, where people are from other places. So they don't have that hometown growing fan. You're going to find. So it's very interesting, but they're sponsored. I mean, the Raiders are sponsored. I think they're probably sponsored by one of the casinos or one of these organizations. So I think that it's just gambling. I think is just, you know, people used to just go to Vegas, and we used to go for March Madness for the first round of the tournament, and it's the greatest thing ever. And I think now it's just you're able to just bring it to the country. I think I think Deb said it the best. I think the want it had so much steam that it just kept on growing and growing and growing, and it was unavoidable that it was going to get to this point. And I'm sure the whole country is going to have it eventually.
Yeah, and they're real fast. I think it was a little stigma back in the day about UNLV. You know, when they were winning, when they were doing a lot of winning back in the day, their basketball team, I think it was like a little stigma about whether gambling was kind of connected to that. Their famous coach that used to bite the towel.
Yeah, Jerry Tarkadian, the Shark.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great.
I investigated him for years.
Exactly right. And I think a lot of that stemmed from them being in the Vegas area.
That team that beat Duke with Grandmama Larry Johnson, and that team, and that was an incredible basketball team.
You're right.
But Deb's right. They had some big time investigations into Tark, what was going on in UNLV. So,
well, you know, I think one of the things that we see here is that gambling and sports has been taboo since at least 1919, since the Black Sox scandal.
Oh, for sure.
We had the Black Sox scandal, and
Pete Rose.
And then I was going to say Pete Rose.
Yeah.
And we had Molinas with basketball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've had a lot of these.
The referee, don't forget the referee, the NBA referee. Yeah. So you're right.
So I guess my question is, are we ready? I mean, it's been 100 years, and we have not had gambling, and all of a sudden, in three, we are changing everything. Are we ready?
I think that I would say cautious optimism would be the best way, at least me personally. I'm a type of person who I used to go to Vegas a lot when I used to bowl, and Vegas is my favorite place to go, but it's probably the worst place for me to be at, because I love it so much. So yeah, as long as you're responsible and as long as you can handle it, you know, it can be a fun outlet, you know. But I'm not going to say that it could cause potential problems for some people. I mean, that's just the facts, you know.
I think the flip side of that question, and this is both for Lomas and for you, Dave, the various leagues. When I say, are we ready? Part of it is the general public, but part of it is the teams and the leagues. Because all the things that we've talked about, when we talk about Pete Rose and we talk about Molinas and we talk about, Shoeless Joe Jackson, what we're really talking about is, or the refs, someone inside the game.
Well, I do think that's a reason why the NFL has to look at, and not that they would stop it, but they have to look at their refs as far as making them full-time full-time refs. These guys, if you think about it, a lot of them, and I'm just, talking about the NFL, these guys have outside jobs after they're done with the season. And I do think, one, for the quality of the game, that I think the refs should be full-time, but like you said, the integrity of the game too. I think you have to be aware of that, especially now, like you guys are saying, how it's going to explode, because we know that it's getting ready to explode with the accessibility that people would have to being able to do it right over their smartphones. Like you say, you don't have to go in the establishment or go in the casino and place these bets. You definitely don't have to really use a bookie anymore like you had to back in the day. So I just think that as far as the NFL, I think they're going to have to really take a strong look at making their referees really, like I say, full-time employees of the NFL.
I mean, I think with anything, if you're going to put out something that is going to allow to deal with money, you're going to find people that are going to try to find a shortcut.
Yep.
All you have to do is look at the Houston Astros from a couple of years back in their World Series. But it's just about responsibility. It's just about being responsible and understanding that there's a limit, and just have fun with it. It's just something to have fun. It's not something that you not many very. There was a guy I used to work with who used to say that they didn't build all of those beautiful casinos in Vegas and hotels on winners.
Yes.
So just know that, I wouldn't say that it would be like that's going to be my job is sports betting,
Yeah.
I'm not that good. So,
and it'll be funny too now there, but a lot of teams are talking about, and they said you'll probably see it this year coming up in the NFL, how a lot of teams will be advertising on their jerseys. We've already seen that in basketball where they have the different, but now I think it's going to permeate over into football where right now they just have one, sponsor on there. But I think that's going to increase. Again, you got a lot of these teams getting in bed with these sports betting, what would I call them? Sports betting vehicles or opportunities, or like Sports King and MGM Bet and Bet Rivers.
I mean, if you think about it, COVID is also playing a big part in this as far as the teams, because there were no fans that came to any of the games. So these teams need to make up revenue somehow. So they're selling their advertising rights to advertise their logos on their jerseys or on the ice or on the basketball court or wherever they might put them. So COVID is playing a big part in this. And we know that if you turn on a radio or a television, every other commercial is about online gaming is coming very soon. So, they've got deep pockets. They're willing to spend the money. And this is a way for some of the teams to make up some of the revenue that was lost due to COVID. So,
right. Well, even the NHL is selling the names of their divisions.
Yeah, exactly.
The names of their divisions.
Yeah.
And I think, Dave, you're exactly right. COVID is changing so much. And there's a lot of room on a jersey, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of places to put a logo, a saying, whatever you might want to put, a phone number. Or I'm waiting for them to put those little codes, the little boxes.
The QR code.
Yeah, the QR code where you can pause your DVR, scan it, and then you can download the app, and you're good to go.
I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, well, they have this this Clicktivate now is what it's called. And for example, I was talking to one of my teammates, Herman Moore, and say like if there was a rap video on, you could actually scan over and say if you like the guy's shirt that he had on in that video, you could click on that shirt and it'll pull up what type of shirt it is, where the closest place you could buy that shirt at, the price of that shirt. And you could do it on different items that people are wearing. It's called Clicktivate. So again, you could see where they're moving towards with this whole thing and with being able to click and just instantly buy things. The funny thing to me is now all these prop bets that are coming out. It's just amazing what you can bet on now. Who's going to sing the national anthem, just different things like that. Of course, they had who's going to score the first touchdown, who's going to have the first fumble. But it's even going a lot deeper than that now with all these prop bets that have come up. And I think that's a direct result of gambling and how it's expanded and how it is going to expand.
I mean, Super Bowl is much more than just the squares. I mean, you can bet on the color of the Gatorade that they're going to dump on the winning coach.
Exactly.
So you're talking about different prop bets. So, I mean, who would have predicted in the playoff game with the Steelers and the Browns, and the first play is a snap over his head into the end zone. So yeah, I mean it's all gambling related. Like my brother, who Lomas knows very well, likes to say, watching sports is fun. But you want to have a lot of fun, add some gambling into it.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the people playing fantasy sports, people playing squares, and all of a sudden my mother-in-law is watching every game.
Which is a good thing, Dale, because you're right. I think it's bringing, I know fantasy for sure has brought a lot more interest into the game, because you're so right about that. So many people that really didn't care about other teams other than their own teams. Now that they have players, that they have either in their fantasy or on their fantasy team, now you find them watching other games and being enthralled with these other games because they want to see what their players are doing. So I think it's brought a lot more interest, not just only in the teams that they normally root for, but that total sport.
Yep, absolutely. I think we've got our interns in the background, and I think we're going to bring those on. And I'd like to ask a question kind of everybody here. So we've got LeVar and Rocky, our two interns. And the question I have is, which sport? I mean, I'm absolutely amazed that in 3 years' time, we're going to start. We've already started to see casinos advertising in stadiums. That's huge. And the sports are all a little different. So if we had, which sport is going to jump on first? How are going to be most successful at this? Maybe that's a better way of asking the question. Of the major sports and adding the NCAA in there.
I'm going to say basketball and football because you have a better chance of winning. Mm-hmm. There are some people out there who bet on tennis, and you have to go to a specific sports book to bet on tennis. Mm-hmm. But that's going to take a while because that's not a sport a lot of people feel comfortably betting on. It's the same thing with golf. You have to know the ins and outs of golf to make those bets. But NCAA, football, basketball, same thing with NBA and same thing with NFL. Those are two common sports that everybody follows, and mm-hmm. everybody has a team. So you feel more comfortable betting on something you've probably watched your whole life.
I would say NCAA is going to be a little different than professional. But I don't know. Dave, Lomas, Rocky, thoughts?
First of all, betting on basketball is one of the most infuriating things I've ever done in my life. I mean, you can be up by 25, yes. And then all of a sudden there's they come back and they get that backside cover, and you're like tearing your hair out. But we had the college football championship recently with Alabama and Ohio State, and then we had the Final Four with Clemson and Notre Dame, and that was huge. Mm-hmm. Betting on college, and LeVar's right. Betting on college sports is giant because college basketball, college football, so it's going to be really big.
Yeah, I know. For me, it's the numbers game, and what I mean by that, a lot less moving parts. Meaning football, you got to worry about 22 guys and what they're doing. With the basketball, you're worrying about 5 guys on one team or 5 guys on the other team. So to me, I like to look at it as a lot less moving parts that I have to worry about in a football game, man. Like you said, it's just so many things that are going on. Your kicker could be having a bad game that day, and you got to worry about that. Your O-line, they can decide to take the game off. So it's just so many moving parts in football. So I kind of have to agree. I think for me, I think it would be basketball would be the one that I do. And I would also say college basketball, to me, NCAA more so than the pros too.
Yeah, I can see.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can see Lomas staying up late for a little Gonzaga Arizona State college basketball game. Checking the over under at like 3:00 in the morning. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yep, on his phone, playing the mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we've got the NCAA. I mean, everybody's run a little differently. We saw it with COVID. We saw how each of the commissioners and each of the sports played it differently. And then we have the state legislatures and what they're going to allow.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, again, if you look back, I just think when I say less moving parts too, you think about the bubble and how successful the NBA was with doing that. Now you talk the NFL, were possibly talking about that for the playoffs. They hadn't had to really do that because things kind of settled down a little bit. But I mean, that Cleveland game, they had a lot of guys missing out of that Cleveland game too. If you think about, the coach wasn't there for the Pittsburgh game, so they had a lot of things moving there. So I do think, maybe the bubble type situation, you might see that a lot more. It's going to be interesting to see how baseball get through and what they want to play. I think, are they talking to 162 games? Or was it less?
It's going to be less again. They said that they don't want to start until everybody gets the vaccine. So that's a whole nother problem that the sports are NBA is talking about it too, because there's a limited amount of vaccines that are available. So
at that point, you're really talking about ethical considerations and
exactly.
Do you give a player or do you give grandma the vaccine?
Deb, you're exactly right. That's going to be a PR nightmare. They were actually talking about that today, and then they were actually talking about the players that you want to use, because the commissioner is saying this now, and they're saying that it should be left up to the players, if that's something that they want to do and stuff. Now the commissioner is talking about doing that, and you're right, they're going to have a large PR problem if you got a 22-year-old superstar athlete getting a shot over, like you say, your 95-year-old grandmother who really needs it.
Yeah, or a healthcare worker or anybody else. I mean, that's going to be a big issue, and then of course that's going to affect the outcome of games.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you've got Duke's women's basketball and Virginia's women's basketball. They've just canceled the season. They're done.
Yeah.
They're not. Yeah. You've got Michigan State that's about to miss their third game on Saturday in a row because they've got COVID issues. So but I think the NFL's done a very good job. The NFL did not have to make any changes. They didn't have to add the 18th week like they were going to add. We're heading into the final 3 games. And so everything is worked well for the NFL, and they were not able to bubble. So I think that they've done, out of the sports without the teams that didn't bubble, baseball had to go to 60 games, and NHL and NBA bubbled, so they were able to finish their seasons. The NFL's done very well, except for the one game where they had the Broncos that had all their quarterbacks.
Right. Well, that's been solved with a rule change.
The Lions might debate that too, with all their coaches missing against that Tampa Bay team. But you know what we're talking about, which Deb, we said in the beginning, it's all about the dollars, the money that you have to spend to be able to do that. And you can kind of see how the NCAA is being affected because they don't have the revenue that you're talking about the professional leagues have to spend on a lot of things that the professional leagues would be able to do with the testing every day. Even some of them doing it a couple of times a day, or the speed testing, the testing where you can find out right away, if you're symptomatic or not. So it's a lot of things that money is able to do for you. And of course, the colleges suffering because they're not being able to allow fans there. So their revenue line is just a lot lower than it would be for any professional sports.
Right. And that is a really, really good point, because the NFL is the most successful in terms of monetary league. And they were able to take care of everything. But then you get into the ethical issue of the fact that the NFL players all got tested and I couldn't get a test.
Mm-hmm. You're
and
right.
That is the difference between people who are getting paid to do a job, like the professionals, and students. Yes. So you're okay. So I can't go on campus, but I can have football being played in the stadium with no fans. So that was a big ethical concern for a lot of colleges this year.
Yep. So much with this gambling thing. Rocky, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, going back to your first question you had, Dave, you said we have just a few questions or a few games left in the NFL. And I think because with Michigan allowing the betting to be legalized now, you're going to see more people going bigger with money with this game, these last few games. Especially with football, especially now we're getting to the Super Bowl, we're getting bigger. People are going to bet higher money, especially the fans who want to be at those games but couldn't go to the games due to the pandemic. You're going to see a lot of money coming through. But didn't the Alliance do a partnership deal with MGM?
Yes.
Yep. What would that help? Would that help anyway with any type
It's going to help. It's just going to help. It's just going to help the revenue stream for the Lions, who were not able to have fans at Ford Field this year. Because no matter how bad the Detroit Lions play, the one thing is they always fill that stadium every week.
Exactly right. Yeah. And they built to your point, they built the MGM tunnel. That was the name of the tunnel that the players come through. They built special seating in the front row of the end zone, the relaxed recliners where they had actual people serve them, and so they did a lot. They even had a clubhouse where they did all this. Yeah, so it was big time that they went in with the MGM, with their partnership. And I think you're going to see that a lot more. I think you're going to see, because I always think that the NFL is more corporate than anything else, because again, even when you look at the Super Bowl, I mean, they allow, if it's a 60,000 person stadium, 20,000 may be regular fans, but those other 40,000, it's going to be used for corporations that they're trying to draw in. So to me, the NFL is the corporate sport out there.
Most definitely. When you guys said that the Lions always fill their stadiums, do you feel like Michigan's going to ride for the Lions with the gambling, the betting? And help bring even more in that sense?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the whole question.
Since the Lions, we're always loyal, no matter our record, how the game's going. We always pay for our tickets and we fill up our field. Do you feel like that's going to show with the betting, especially due to the pandemic, not going in person to the games, that we're going to show through betting? Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's going to be This is going to be a big weekend for online for gaming. So this was probably strategic of them to have them to come out as quickly as they could, and this is going to be a big weekend for them for sure, definitely.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think they approved everything on Tuesday, and on Friday we're ready to go.
Right.
Okay. So final thoughts, and do you think the app's going to crash?
That is a great question. I hope not, but there's a possibility because there's going to be a lot of action going on.
Yeah, I downloaded my app, so I'm downloading my MGM app because hey, take advantage of getting that $100. They're gonna match it. I put $100 in there, they're gonna match it. Yeah, exactly.
100 with the casino credit, and then 100 with the actual app with Sportsbook.
There you go. So
if you're a problem gambler, check out our gambling problem helpline with this across the bottom of this. LeVar, any final thoughts on this?
You got to be 21 to do online gambling in Michigan, just in case anybody at there is 19 and they're like, I'm about to jump on. And like Rocky had just said, and Lomas too, because it's the opening weekend, a lot of sites are going to give you incentive betting because they want you out there. So that's free money to take advantage of that you normally wouldn't have the advantage to take of.
Yeah, there's also going to be bonuses too to watch out for too that they're going to add in addition to the free money. So it's going to be cool. And then leading right into March Madness.
Ooh,
it's going to be awesome.
Yes, it is.
Yep. And so that's gambling in Michigan. Get ready for Friday. Thank you. Thank you for being our guest. Thank you for everybody's viewpoint. And I hope we're all excited. And this is going to be a money. So check us out on SportsSlaw.com. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on SoundCloud. Soon to be on Spotify. Soon to be on Apple, I believe. And so looking forward to any questions you may have. Thank you, everybody.